And by the way, as far as the assets, everybody, I'll drop them in the community
Yeah,
later on once Aaron sends them to me.
there's gonna be quite a few of them. So you guys will be able to take these and run with it. All right. So this presentation again, there's gonna be some stuff that I skip. It was for this guy, Justin Saunders, at his event here in Miami a few weeks back. So there's gonna be some stuff that's not prevalent here. And like I said, I'm gonna skip some of the fluff so we can get straight into this stuff. All right. So let's get through it. So what we're gonna start talking about, guys, is the evolution phases of your sales team. And you're probably wondering what the hell is an evolution cycle or an evolution phase, right? There's different phases that you're gonna go through in business, right? You're going to go from like 0 to 100K, and then you're going to go from 100K to 500, and then 500 to a million a month. And then you have your big evolution phases when we're talking like 10 million to 25 million, 25 million to 50 million, etc. As you're going through these phases, there's certain things, and think of this as like a video game, right? You open up a video game, you're first finding whatever stuff you got to train on. They're teaching you how to move your freaking stuff around, whatever the hell, right? So that you can actually complete the first level, and you're accomplishing certain things and picking up gear, or you're picking up whatever as you go along, right? It's the same thing in business. There's different evolution phases that you're going to go through, and you need to have certain things in place before you get through that evolution phase. And if you don't, the next cycle is going to be 10 times harder. Okay. And most people fail in business because during those evolution cycles, they do not do the small, little, tiny things that most people don't do, like documentation, like setting up a progression ladder or a path of success for a sales team. Taking some extra time to document certain things like KPIs and compensation and there's a lot of things that people just don't do because they're too busy, right? And what happens is they build, and they get to the next phase and they're missing a lot of the prerequisites. So their business, the demand, the opportunity is ready to go to the next phase, but you have no foundation. So it's going to result in three things. You're either going to start over, you're going to have to run back towards go, and you're going to have to start over. You're going to burn out, or your whole team's going to basically leave you because they're just not having a good time. It's too difficult, right? So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about ROAS a little bit. This presentation was towards really getting a sound foundation in the sales side so we can boost ROAS, which is pretty cool. And then I'm going to give you guys a ton of free crap, which is going to help you guys a ton as we go through here. All right. So who am I? I started, and I'm going to just go kind of to my history. So this is me back in the day. I was kind of a crazy kid. This is me after I got kicked out of high school. So I never finished high school. Long story. This is me building my first ever presentation board after I got kicked out of high school. During college, I started a bikini company. Yes, a bikini company. Tai Lopez was big at the time. I was 19. I was like, this is sweet. I can kind of, do my two favorite things at the same time. And I got into drop shipping and it went very, very well. So I ended up dropping out of school again and building a bikini company, which led into building an agency. This agency was specifically like marketing, content curation, distribution. We got to fly around the world, Switzerland, Dubai. I was making no money, but I was traveling everywhere, meeting a bunch of cool people. And I got to hire a bunch of my best friends from high school, and that's what we did. Going from this, I got into a company that's very similar to what you guys are doing here. We did crowdsource consulting. So we would go around the country doing big events, right? We had a mastermind or what we called crowdsource consulting, and we would go get some of the biggest names, people in the space. We would pay their fees, right? Our community would pay us, and we would basically crowdsource big name consultants. And I was doing this right around when I was 19, 20 years old. I didn't have a lot of value to give, but I had a really good network where I could get the value from. So I was technically consulting hundreds of startups at a very, very young, early age with no experience. And the way I did that was basically going and pulling in big names and being able to pay for their time to give it to a larger group, which was SocialX. Okay. That got me into building sales teams. Don't ask me. It's a long story. I'm not going to go into it now, but I got into building sales teams for companies. Now, that was where I found my first like big superpower. That's where my, I was able to kind of start really finding true success in what I was doing. Now, as I was building these teams, it was basically I was finding these big success moments, and the more of those success moments I was having, I was getting more and more demand for me to try and come in and basically help build out these sales departments. And the way I like to talk about it is like, think if anybody has seen Bar Rescue, think like sales team rescue. That's what I was doing. I was going into companies, I was looking through everything, and I was rebuilding, usually ripping out everything and rebuilding the teams from scratch. Okay. Now, after a few years of doing that, I started realizing that after these teams became successful enough, the mass, right? That's what I was building. I was building the recruiting, the training. I was the one actually going in at a setting level and building myself up and out. So I was doing the mass portion. These teams in these companies, after getting to $1 million a month, $1.5 million a month, getting really, really high revenue month over month, they started to fall apart. And it was because they didn't have systems in place. Like, think of I don't know, you guys know what like the roads of Miami look like. They're all freaking winding all over the place. It's freaking construction everywhere. Well, that's what these companies' systems started to look like. Just like the traffic of Miami, like they can't handle all of the traffic that's coming through because all the roads are messed up. So they're having to build new roads and do all this different stuff to keep the traffic flowing. That's what happens with systems at scale. And if you don't decide and build systems properly from the beginning, you're going to run into a ton of issues. Okay. That's when we switch to doing what we do today, which is where we get to service a lot of the clients that Ken was talking about on his story, because we get to come in from an understanding of building sales teams, CS teams from the bottom up. We're able to go in and build systems that actually get used by these teams and by these companies, and we're not IT backed. We are sales leaders and CS leaders going into building systems. So that is what we do today. Okay. All right. Enough about that. Principles I'm going to skip over. We're going to jump straight into it. Okay. So real quick, evolution cycles. Okay. If we're talking about how many of you guys here are in like coaching, consulting, or like agency, if you guys can drop something in the chat, a 1, a 2, it doesn't really matter. I just kind of want to see what you guys have. Okay, great. And how many of you guys are selling under, let's call it like a $10,000 price point? Is anybody selling over a $10,000 price point? Over. How much over? Okay. Yeah, that's okay. I was just in the terms of like, yeah, if you guys are selling 60 to 100,000, 200,000, your evolution cycles are going to be quite different. Okay. So what we're going to talk about, guys, is basically evolution phase 1 from 0 to about 250,000 a month. Is anybody here doing over 250,000 a month? Okay, perfect. So this is going to be perfect for you guys. We're going to talk about basically going from 0 to about 250,000 a month and what that evolution phase looks like. Okay. And what you guys are going to notice is there's going to be different pod structures that we're going to start to point out and how these things actually grow and develop over time and what that means for you. Okay. So what we're going to talk about first is the sales team evolution, basically feedback loop, essentially. Okay. What you guys are going to notice is no matter what you guys are doing in business, doesn't matter the department, doesn't matter the team, doesn't matter where you guys are at in terms of you're doing 10 million a month, you're doing 10,000 a month. This is kind of what's going to be happening. Does anybody know Ray Dalio or has seen the feedback loop principle before?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, sweet. So essentially what we're going to see is inside of these evolution cycles, right? We're going to have 3 main basically feedback loops as we go through this. Okay. And what these evolution cycles look like from, evolution phase 1 to 2 to 3 is it's basically going to look like this. Okay. As you guys grow, right, you guys are going to see and feel all of these different heights and then failures and then heights and failures and heights and failures. And that's how it's going to be forever. What I've been able to do, because I've worked through this 0 to about phase 3 multiple times, is I've been able to identify kind of these different areas, and that's what we're going to go through today. Okay, we're going to go through each basically feedback loop and what that can be kind of mitigated for you guys. Okay, now going through this, did anybody know the formula for momentum? Can anybody tell me what that is in the chat? Negative. All right, cool.
I think it's speed and mass. Force.
Yep. Quan. Yeah. Mass times velocity equals momentum. Perfect. So we're going to talk about how to build momentum specifically on the mass side today, right? And when you guys are thinking about momentum, think of scale, right? We want to scale, but we want to be able to scale with momentum. We don't want to get stuck. We don't want it to be super, basically stressful and constantly volatile, right? So there's ways to be able to do this a little bit better. Think of mass as your people, process, and structure, velocity as systems, okay? So basically what we're going to talk about is from distress to eustress. Does anybody know the difference between distress and eustress in a business? No, maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to ask. I'm like talking like I'm in front of all of you guys, but it's okay. So distress, right? Distress in a sales team is characterized, I'm going to read this, by overwhelming pressure, unmanageable challenges, and constant stress of strain leading to decreased performance, burnout, and potential team discord, right? So when you're in a form of distress, usually as a founder or an owner, right, you're just constantly thinking about how to keep people happy. Like there's never a how do we grow this thing? How do we build? It's always just about trying to keep people happy, right? When you're going into a eustress state or in eustress, right? Eustress in a sales team represents positive stress that stimulates motivation, focus, and growth. It's marked by manageable challenges that push the team beyond their comfort zone, fostering resilience, adaptability, and peak performance, right? It's good stress. Problems that are coming up motivate the team. Okay. You don't get that without having some foundation, all three of these buckets. Okay. So this is what our first phase is going to look like. And this is where we're going to really start to kind of get into the meat of this, right? When you are getting started, okay, this is evolution phase 1. Okay. And there's 3 of these phases that we could go through, but we're going to go through evolution phase 1. It's going to be from you doing it yourself. So everybody that was here saying like, yeah, I'm doing it myself right now, I'm the main salesperson. Good. That's what you should be doing, especially if this is your first business. Okay. You're going to go from doing it. You're going to be creating a process. You're going to prove that process. You're going to go to teaching it, right? You're going to kind of optimize off your teachings. You're going to systemize it, and then you're going to start managing it, right? Accountable expectations. Okay. So going through this process is what we're going to talk about right now. As you're doing it, right? You're sending out DMs, you're running your first ads, you're cold calling, you are doing your own discoveries, you're doing your own closing calls, right? You're doing all this stuff to prove some kind of process that can be some kind of replicatable thing that you can actually teach to somebody else. That is what you're going for. And if you're not building assets as you're doing it in the beginning, right, you're going to have to build all your assets later after you have a bunch of chaos. So this that you guys are going through right now is how you're going to actually get to the sustainable phase 2, phase 3, and everything beyond. But if you don't get this phase right and you skip a bunch of stuff, it's going to be where you're either going to have to try again, you're going to have to restart and go back to go, or you're going to burn out. There's only 2 basically outs out of this if you're missing a bunch of things as you go through this. Okay. Now, where this is going to start for you and where this is going to end for you is you're going to want some kind of standard pod. You're going to want at least one pod set up for your sales team, and I'm going to explain why in a little bit. Now, what you'll also notice is as you start doing it, right, you start to build that process, you start to prove it, you start to figure out some things, you start closing some deals, right? You're going to start to hit a floor, right? As soon as you start teaching it, that floor is going to get all volatile again, because now you're giving it to somebody else and you're having to learn how to actually teach this stuff. And what you'll notice is this pain versus pleasure scale, right? And the volatility scale is going to go from hurts to feels good, volatile to stable. So if we're going back to these loops, right? Every single time you're in a evolution phase, you're going to go through about 3 of these floors, right? You're going to start doing it yourself. You're going to prove something. You're going to hit a little floor. You're going to bring in your first setter, your first closer, whatever the case may be. It's going to get volatile again because you have to learn how to teach this shit. And then you're going to hit a floor because they're going to start doing something solid, right? Then it's going to get volatile again because you're going to go from managing or from teaching it to managing it. And then you're going to hit a floor again, right? And this is always going to happen. So if you can understand that if you bring people in and it gets a little dicey, that is completely normal, right? You're going to be able to manage the pressure and kind of the stress a little bit better. All right. Now, going into this, right? So just a heads up, during phase 1, it's 100% you. every problem that you have, every issue that you're going to run into, it is 100% on you, right? Especially early on in the sales process and in the building of your sales team. There's no blame, right? It's not that the person's not doing their job. It's not that they're not hitting KPIs. It's 100% on you. You have to be the one setting expectations. You have to lead from the front. This is completely on you in this first entire evolution phase. Okay. From building the team and optimize the assets to training, driving sales revenue, setting expectations, accountability, recruiting, hiring, firing, it's 100% on you. All right. Now, 3 simple but overlooked pieces to get in early. Okay. And this is where we're going to start to kind of get into some of these assets. Results, expectations, compensation. Okay. Bottom up promotion, right? And making meetings not boring. Okay. One of the biggest problems that I see, especially early on, is the meetings with sales teams are just repetitive. You go in every morning, you're trying to figure out what you're going to talk about. They're coming in like, fuck, I got to listen to Aaron talk again. And it just gets really boring and repetitive over a long period of time. Also, setting expectations, right? And we're going to kind of go through each one of this. Let's start with KPIs, results, and expectations in comp. This is one thing that most people just skip completely. They just look it over, right? And I absolutely love this because this is what it looks like when you have no expectation set, you have no results, and you don't have any kind of compensation structure that's actually true, right? It's actually able to be met. So this is you recruiting your first sales rep, and this is your sales rep looking at you, basically promising them the world, saying, yeah, you're going to make a ton of money. This is your expectations. This is what you're going to be doing. This is them staring back at it like, okay, I kind of trust you, but I don't understand how the hell I'm supposed to do this. And this is literally what it looks like 9 times out of 10 when you're bringing on your first reps. This is how it works, okay? So what we're going to talk about real quick is how to actually build out these comp plans and these compensation structures so that you guys can have some foundation when you bring people in. One of the biggest problems that early on salespeople do is when they're going through this phase, right? So when they go from doing it to teaching it, right? They get it to work once, so they make a sale or two, and then they go straight into trying to bring people on to do it for them. And then they set these really high expectations, these really high KPIs. They have no ability to actually know what's possible. And they're telling somebody to go set 5 times a day, 10 times a day when they've never done it themselves. That's why in this beginning period, it's very important that you're doing it and you're tracking this stuff. So let's talk about how you can track it. And let's dive into that real quick. So, and you guys are going to get a copy of this, but we're going to go into it real fast. All right. So when you guys are looking at basically expectations, comp plans, stuff along those lines, this is something that a lot of people don't do. And especially early on, it's going to save you a ton of time. You're going to be able to give it to your team. They're going to know exactly what you expect of them. A lot of people are going to be hiring friends, family, friends of friends in the beginning. So it's really important that you set clear expectations with them, right? And clear expectations that are proper. Like they're real achievable numbers. They're not made up hypothetical numbers that you want to see them do because that's what you think that they should be doing. These are numbers that you've actually built and have proven, all right? Now going through this, right? As you're going through and you're proving this process, you need to get these numbers. You can't be guessing when you bring on your first couple salespeople. You can get close, right? And have a very, I would say, educated guess on your number, but you need to get close, right? And once you have these numbers, so for example, call to connect, connect to set, disco to call, closing call to show, your closing call taken to close percentage, your average cash collected, all this stuff, right? Now we can actually build out the setter KPIs. And a very, very easy way for you guys to manage a very small team in the beginning, especially when you're running and gunning from the front, is the red zone, yellow zone, green zone model, okay? And basically what this is, guys, is you are going to give what you expect in KPIs, right? And you are going to give a 20% decrease and a 20% increase to your red zone and your green zone. And all this allows you to do is give them very, very clear expectations of what their compensation can look like, right? So an actual example of this here is, for example, right? If they're in the red zone, with whatever KPIs we've developed, right? So 600 calls, 30 sets a month, show percent, right? It's 18. So I think it's around 60% show, right? And they're doing about 30,000 a month in cash collected or revenue or whatever the case may be, right? Versus the green zone, right? Here's your expectations on compensation. Yes, you guys are going to get all of this stuff, and there's going to be trainings at the top of it as well. So when you guys are creating these compensations in the beginning, like this stuff is easy to not do. It's easy to look at this and be like, yeah, I've kind of got something and write it off. If you guys do this stuff and you bring on the sales team with proper expectations and you can hold them accountable at the end of each month, and it's very simple for you to do, and you can say, look, Aaron, you want to make more money. You've been in the red zone the last 2 months. You haven't been making your calls. You haven't been meeting your sets, right? Therefore, you're making the compensation that I told you were going to make. It's under what you want to do. All you need to do, if you want to make more money, is get into the green zone. So instead of doing 600 dials, let's do 1,500, right? Instead of doing 600 dials, let's do 1,000, right? But you can start to create these formulas and base it off of real compensation, and you can tell them what they're going to make depending on where they're at. Okay. Now going back to this sheet, right? The way that this works is you're going to figure out these numbers first. If you guys are doing DM setting, if you're doing inbound leads off of VSL, you need to get these numbers. You need to get these numbers, or at least close enough to these numbers as you can, so that when you bring somebody in, you can set proper expectations. This red zone, yellow zone, green zone thing is what you're going to do at the end of each month. You're going to go in, you're going to take a look, red zone, green zone, yellow zone, great, right? Now, when you're building your comp packages, right, it's going to be very different from your setter to your actual closer, which I'll give you guys the sheet that has the setter, the closer, the sales lead, the VP. It has all of it. And what you guys will notice is this is 100% commission only. So if you guys want to throw in some bases, there's a few other ways to do it. But you don't have to. You can do it purely off commission. I've built 100-person sales teams, no one on salary, no one on base, not a single person. So it's possible. You just have to do it properly. Okay. And also, this is going to lead into our next point, where if you guys start to build these pieces, right, what happens if someone goes green zone 6 months in a row, or 3 months in a row, or 4 months in a row? How do you properly promote them to a closer without getting rid of your best setter and leaving a huge void and a gap in your setting team now, and training a new closer, right? So going into compensation, right? Obviously, you can give commission, right, depending on what that looks like. What you should always do with compensation is you want really like 3 different characteristics, especially with the setter, right? You want to have obviously commission. You want to have some kind of kicker that allows them to get wins each and every day, right? And you want a milestone or some kind of bonus ladder, right? We want to give them targets that they should be shooting for, right? So if we're doing 7.5% commission, $20 per set, right? That's completed in terms of a closing call. And then we're doing a milestone ladder at 1,000, 25, or 250,000, 500,000. This is where you can get really, really cool and exciting things with, right? For example, what we used to do is we had, actually, let me pull it up for you guys, because this is actually pretty cool for you guys to see. Okay, cool. Here we go. So what we used to do, can you guys see this right here?
Yeah.
Whenever our milestones were met, our reps in the morning, right, we'd say, hey, this guy's name is Jacob Corso. We'd say, Jacob Corso, you met milestone 1. Congratulations. We would basically give them this massive check, or we'd mail it to them if we were doing this with our online teams. This check couldn't get cashed until they hit their next milestone, but they would get their big ass check. So this big ass check would literally sit on their wall, and they'd stare at it, and it says $5,000, which is theirs, but they're not able to actually get the small check to cash it until they hit their next milestone, right? And what we're doing here, guys, is we're giving them, and you're going to see how this stuff starts to actually stack on top of it, or stack on top of each other, is we are giving them very clear comp and expectations, right? So we don't have to constantly go back and be like, well, you know, if they're like, well, I'm not making enough money, or this isn't working, or blah, blah, like we're constantly holding them accountable to this. We're giving them a very clear comp plan, and then we're using these milestones to grow our setters into closers. And then we're going to grow our closers into sales leads. And once we are able to do that at least 1 or 2 times, we're then going to split off, and we're going to start building our pod structure, right? Which looks like this. We're going to go from 1 pod to 2 pods to 3 pods, and then you're going to be able to start to introduce competition and a whole bunch of other stuff, which I'll touch on a little bit later, right? Now, this evolution phase is you. You have to start setting for yourself, and then you're going to start closing for yourself, and then you're going to start teaching, right? This is pod number 1. You have to be able to prove the model of taking a setter and turning them to a closer, and a closer eventually into what? A sales lead, right? So you can get to 2 pods. And this is what's going to take you through evolution phase 2. It's nothing fancy. It's just a really strong culture, really clear expectations, very clear path forward. If you guys are recruiting salespeople, and I want to give you a hypothetical scenario. Ken, you're talking to somebody, right? They're trying to recruit you as a salesperson. You're looking for a role. And they say, yeah, man, we can get you, here's your comp. This is what you're going to do. You're going to be setting, blah, 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 blah. But then you come to me and I say, look, man, you're going to start as a setter. These are the milestones that you need to meet. Here's your ladder. You can get to a closer as fast as you want. It's up to you. But here's how you have to do that. Here's how you have to meet my expectations. And I'm going to teach you, and I expect you to go from the bench to practicing, from practice to starting second half, from starting second half to playing first half, to being the captain of the team. Like, I expect you and I want you to do that. That's how we're building this. You have to replicate and leave a trail behind you, right? So everybody can climb and go as fast as they want through these ladders so you can develop your team, right? If your team's developing and it's all building leadership and people are building up, one, you're going to mitigate churn. Because as soon as somebody goes from a setter to a closer, from a closer to a sales lead, and now there's a team underneath them, you don't have to worry about people constantly leaving your organization, especially as your team gets big, right? And what I really want you guys to understand is all of this stuff happens in phase 1. This shit doesn't happen in phase 3. This stuff happens in phase 1. And you got to do these small, little, tiny things that you feel like you can skip, but you can't. You got to take time to document this stuff. You got to take extra time while you're in the sales process doing these things to actually build some of these assets, right? And we're going to get into that why we're going to do that next. But this is important. This is very important, and most people just don't do it. So you guys are going to get this sheet. What I recommend is you guys go through and try and get as close to these numbers as you can. If you're doing DMs or whatever, a different process, go ahead, right? But get these numbers, start playing with these numbers, right? Start creating your formulas, okay? And when you bring in your team members, or you're going to start to go from doing it to teaching it, they're going to have clear expectations. And what we're going to do with this, I'm going to explain next. You're going to get it afterwards, guys. You guys, I'm going to send everything to Ken. He'll drop it out to you, okay? Now, when you guys create your milestones, okay, this is where, oh, this is our monster doc. So hold on 1 second. Cool. Yeah. So when you guys create this, right, the red zone and green zone accountability methods, very easy. Counting tool, very easy not to hold this up, right? This will help your roster developed and blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. Yeah. Thanks, Ken. All right. So moving on, what we're actually going to do with this, right? Yeah, here's a bunch of the different bonuses that we used to do, recognition we used to give. We used to have within one of our companies, I don't know if I can actually play this video and you guys are going to be able to hear it.
Oh, we can't hear it. You'd have to share your sound when you share your screen.
Okay, so this is, yeah, the heavy hitter award. It was a bat that we'd send in the mail back and forth to whoever had the biggest month. You'd sign it, you'd put your name, you'd date it, and then on the day that you give it up, you date it, put it in the mail, and send it to the next person. Little things like this, guys, are the things that people don't do, which is how you actually build the sales teams and the sales departments and the businesses that you guys would be proud to like actually own and be a part of, right? You need to foster that environment from the beginning, okay? That's just a random example, but yeah, recognition, future pace, and competitive bonuses. I'm going to touch on this a little bit. And actually, I'm going to go into this because this will probably be something that you guys, let me see here. I'm going to go into, let me see. Hang with me, guys, 1 second. Let's see. All right, cool. So this is basically how it's going to look. You guys are going to be starting here, right? You're going to build your way up. We're going to talk about that in a second. That's the next thing that we're going to talk about, right? And you're going to go to 2 pods, right? Now, when you get to 2 pods, right, the whole goal here is to actually build out competition, right? This is where you can start to implement competition, right? And how we start to do this, right, is one, what it mentions right here, which is future-paced competitive bonuses. Okay, future-paced bonuses are bonuses that they get in the future, right? One thing that we learned pretty early on is when, let's say, for example, these 2 teams are competing for revenue that month, right? So me and Ken are going head to head. Ken kicks my ass, right? Yeah, he crushes me. Okay, so he takes the W for January or February, sorry, right? Instead of giving Ken and his whole team a bonus, right, just a check and handing it over, what we do is we give them basically increased commission for the entirety of the next month. When there's momentum, you want to keep momentum. If I give Ken and them a big fat check, guess what they're going to do the full first week or second week of the next month? They're going to be chilling. You know how I know this? Because I used to do the same thing. I'd get my freaking huge fat bonus check and I'd be like, you know what? I'm good. Like I just made my commission for next month. Like I'm all solid. Like I don't need it. Right. So what we used to do is one, if they win, right, they get to hold something, right? So it's a crown, it's a sword, it's a whatever. We had a freaking samurai sword that we used to pass around, but the sales leads would battle every single month. And if team 1 wins, they hold an increased commission for the entirety of next month. So let's say team 1 wins, they did $1 million, right? And their commission is 10%, right? So overall commission was $100,000. Next month, they get an increase 2.5%, right? Well, if they just do that same number, they're going to get a bonus of 25K. So it's up to them. They could do a huge bonus or they could get a little bonus. It's completely up to them, right? And these teams are battling back and forth, wanting to hold that increased commission every single month, right? And it becomes a driver because A, every single month they know that they can take over for the next month, right? But B, it's enjoyable, it's fun. Like it gets people up in the morning. If at the end of the month, these 2 teams are like within 50K of each other, I guarantee you everybody's staying up until midnight to try and get that increased commission, right? It's the same thing with these milestones, right? Inside of that comp, right? If it's I don't know, Thursday, end of month, I know like our recognition ceremony meeting is coming up on the 1st of next month, and I desperately want to hit this freaking $100,000, right? Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, I'm working because that's a target that I want to hit. If you don't have these targets, right, it's very easy for somebody to just be like, yeah, no, I'm good. Like I'm finished with my day, right? I'm good. Okay. Now, let me see where I was at. Okay, cool. So that's competition stuff. There's a ton more stuff that we can do here, but I'm gonna keep it moving. Now going into promotions, right? Bottom up sales team development. Now, this is probably one of the most, if not the most important piece that if you guys do anything, this is what you guys need to think about. Just think about it. You don't have to do it yet, but think about it, okay? When a sales team person goes from setter to closer, closer to sales lead to VP, and you have that upwards motion and progression, right? The first person that's doing that is you. And if people are being promoted without leaving a cookie trail for the next person to come up behind, you're doing your promotion process wrong, and you're going to be the one still building assets, scripts, resources, etc. forever. So what we want to do with our promotion process is when somebody goes from a setter to a closer, we want the setter to leave behind all of their best assets. We want them to write their script. We want them to fill a drive with 10 of their best ever discovery calls, right? We want them to do all of the things that we would normally do, right? So 6 months, 12 months later, every single best setter that's ever come through your organization that's gone to a closer, has now built their own training curriculum and their own way of them doing it, right? For anybody that comes up behind them. And what this does for you is as you guys start to build this promotion and these milestones and people are starting to grow and go through these roles, right? And go from setter to closer, closer to sales lead, you're not even going to recognize the training resources, the scripts, the materials anymore 12 months later. Why? Because the ones that you built are going to be, they're going to be shit compared to everybody else's. And you're going to constantly be updating your training materials as things change and as people progress, going through your pieces, and you're going to be getting it from your best people that you have ever gotten. So how do we actually set this up, right? When you guys have these milestones, right? And real quick, do you guys understand what I'm talking about here? Setter, closer, closer, sales lead, VP, like as people are progressing. Everybody, okay, cool. A lot of people, when they promote somebody, right? A setter does something really good. The setter's like, hey, Ken, like I want to try closing. I want to try closing. Most people are like, okay, cool. Yeah, let's let them try closing. And that's like their promotion process. There's no big recognition. There's no checklist. There's no milestones. There's no test. There's nothing there to actually like promote somebody, right? And what happens is your whole setting team wants to go to closing. So they're sitting there every day, every other week. Ken, I want to go to closer. I want to go to closer. I want to go to closer. And Ken has no way of just being like, well, here's how you do that, right? If you guys have this promotion process in place, they have to, what? Hit their milestones first, right? So they hit their milestones. Now they're eligible to go to closing, okay? Now, B, once they actually hit their milestones, right, they're going to go into a challenge. How many of you guys have ever done like a fitness challenge, 30-day challenge, whatever, right? It's the same thing with promotions in the sales team. We're going to put them into a challenge, okay? Yeah, 5-day challenge. I'm sure that's something you guys are probably doing, but yeah, we want to put them into a challenge after they hit their eligibility, right? The reason that we're going to do this is this challenge is not necessarily like a challenge to see how much they can do, whatever the case may be, but it's going to be essentially like an assessment, right? To see if they're ready to actually go try closing, right? And the way that we do this, and I'm going to send you guys this asset. It's all of the recommended basically promotion skills for setter to closer, closer to sales lead, etc. But what we do is after they hit their third milestone, right? We then send them the challenge list, and the challenge list is to gather their 10 best discovery calls that they've ever done. It's to rewrite a script. We give them a template and they rewrite their script on how they're handling their discovery calls. It's a 2-week basically shadowing. So they have to increase somebody's performance by 5%, 10%, whatever over 2 weeks, right? So all of these different things are what we're having them go through and do to be able to go to closing. Again, why do we do this? I'm asking you guys, why do we do this? Why is this important? Breadcrumbs, habit loops, momentum. Fuck yeah, momentum. Evolving. Yeah. The simple thing, guys, is as you grow a big sales team, there's going to be this ever turning cog that just needs to be filled with new resources, right? Training, all of these different pieces that need to go into this curriculum for setters, for closers. You guys are going to change your product. There's going to be a new lead source. You do not want to be the person doing that when you have a 20, 30, 40, 50 person sales team. You don't. And it's actually much better that as you become more disconnected with the ground level of the sales team, that your assets are being built by the people who are successfully going from setter to closer. So after you promote 10 people from setter to closer, guess what you have? You have a war chest of 50 call recordings, the best ones that they've ever done out of 10 different people. You have 10 different scripts, okay? You have 10 different people below them who are being developed, right, as they get promoted, right? So all of this stuff is now leaving a trail behind them for the next basically phase of people to come through. And this is simple, but it's hard at the same time. You have to hold people to this. You can't just get lazy and because you need a closer quickly, be like, yeah, you can close now, because it completely defeats the purpose of this. Now, the second piece of this, right, is the official recognition. How many times, and I'm sure some of you guys have seen this, and you can put a 1 in the chat. You're on a sales team and you're a setter and they're just like, yeah, you can start closing now. Or you yourself have a sales team, or maybe not you, but somebody on the Zoom call, right? Has a sales team and you just need a closer. So you just grab whoever you think would be best and say, hey, you're a closer now. There's no fucking recognition in that. There's no excitement around that. There's no, I earned this. There's no, I deserve this. There's no, I hit these objectives and like, fuck yeah, I'm going to closing now. There's none of that. There's no recognition, right? What needs to be in place is if somebody hits their milestones, that's when you pull them aside and you say, hey, you're ready to start your assessment. They start their assessment, right? They complete that assessment. You give that official recognition in a meeting in front of everybody. Say, this guy did it. He went through all of his milestones. This girl went through all of her milestones, and they're officially moving to closer. That's how you promote somebody. Even if your team is 3 or 4 or 5 people big, it's important. Salespeople drive off of a couple different things. Freedom, duh, right? Compensation, right? Like no cap, very high earnings compensation. That's why people are in sales. And then recognition. At a certain point, if you're making 40, 50, 60, $70,000 a month in commission, you don't give a shit about the extra 10K as a bonus. You don't, right? But maybe you want a little extra freedom. Maybe you want more recognition, right? So these things can start to come into play. One thing we used to do, and this is just a side note, is when our closers started making like that kind of money, we then started doing basically the top revenue producing closer for each quarter. We would go and pay for like a press run. So they'd go on Yahoo Finance, they'd go on, Bing or frickin' BuzzFeed and like all these different things. So our top closers were now battling for like recognition and press each quarter because we realized we couldn't motivate these guys with bonuses or money anymore. They didn't give a shit. They were driving the cars they wanted. They had the, they did not care. Right. So we had to find different ways to do it. All right. So before I move on, does anybody have any questions around this? The goal, and I'm going to sidetrack, I'm going to go back a little bit. Find your KPIs, build your first comp or your expectations, your KPIs. Let that lead into your milestones. Again, your milestones should be accomplishable in like 3 to 6 months. It shouldn't be something that's like a 12-month run rate. Like if somebody who's crazy good comes in, they should be able to get this and be able to run it and push through. The faster people are promoting, the better. Okay. You're going to take that, you're going to create your compensation. Okay. And then that's what's going to build off of your milestones. And you're going to create some kind of assessment. And I'm going to give you guys some stuff for assessment ideas, but it should be call recordings, right? Some kind of mentorship, and then rewriting their script, right? Give them a template, have them load all of their best 10 calls into ChatGPT, consolidate a script there, have them rewrite it, format it, etc. Okay. Daniel, what's up, dude?
Hey, dude. Firstly, this is insane. Like, I actually feel like such a child watching this. Like, oh my God, it's so simple. It's actually so jokes. But the thing that I was going to ask is, what's the biggest hurdle that you face when actually implementing this, and what's your thought process behind solving that hurdle?
The biggest hurdle is, again, knowing your numbers.
Okay.
Like this is the biggest thing. Once you have this, the rest of this becomes really easy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the hardest thing, guys, the reason most people fail transparently is because they can't get through this right here. Right? They go from doing it and then they jump straight to trying to manage something. Right?
Yeah.
So they get like a few sales and then they go like, oh, I'm too busy. I got to go and find like, no. Like it's your job to see this all the way through. right? And if you don't have these numbers, you're not tracking this, right? Most people go from doing it to trying teaching it with nothing written down. They have no idea what their numbers are, right? So they're guessing. They're like, oh yeah, 100 dials a day. That sounds good. Yeah, that's probably like, that's what you should be doing, bro.
Okay.
And then the sales team's like, dude, you're giving me freaking 20 leads a week. Like, who am I supposed to be calling? How am I supposed to be doing this? Like, I don't understand. Like, you haven't given me any train. So basically what I'm saying is like the hardest part of this is knowing or getting close enough to these numbers to be able to create a reasonable, right, and close enough expectations that are reliable.
Mhm.
Because once you have this, then you can create this, right? And then you're going to get your setters to replace you as the closer. And then you're going to get your closer, your top closer to replace you as a sales lead. And now all of a sudden, right, guess what? You've just gone from the top of your sales pod, or from here, I should say, to a closer, to a sales lead, to now more of like a sales director, right? And you've got two teams that are competing, right? And this should be happening right around like the 400 or 500K a month mark if you're selling something around 10K,
Mhm.
right? So the hardest part is just doing it and actually doing and having the discipline to like actually try and figure out these numbers.
Yeah.
Most people just don't do it and they get fed up and they just guess.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that
No,
will bite you in the ass. I promise you.
and then probably quite a dumb, or not a dumb question, but quite a simple one. It's like, once you've built out all of the scripts, once you've got all of that stuff that was getting you the results, someone joins, they're not getting the same results. That's then a training limitation in terms of like, this is the training. So then it's up to you as like the sales lead or closer training the setter to make sure that they then reach. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
So you're gonna, yeah, you go from doing it, right? You prove something that kind of works for you, right? So you prove a process that works for you, right? Whatever that is. And then you go into teaching it, right? And they're gonna bring you back a shit ton of feedback. Yo, you're the CEO, so you can sell like that, but I can't. So like, I need your help, right? And you're gonna optimize and systemize this thing, right? And that's gonna allow you to actually go to managing it because now you kind of have worked out the cogs, you've greased the oil, like you've fixed it, right? And that's part of this phase. And that's why it goes from like hurting like hell because you're trying to figure it out yourself to like, oh, damn, I'm making sales myself. This is awesome. And then you go to teaching it. Everyone's like, yo, I don't know how to do any of this shit. Like, help me, help me, help me. And it starts to hurt like hell again, right? It becomes super difficult. But then you kind of start to build up this thing where people start to get better. They get more aligned and whatever the case may be. And then you get back into this feel good state. And then when you jump from the closer to like a sales lead or whatever, and you start kind of managing this thing, it starts to hurt to get differently because now you're trying to like get people to do things without doing it for them, right? And a whole bunch of other stuff, which we're not going to get into. But does that answer your question? Like,
yeah, no, that's super helpful. I think like the hurt bit we're at is the teaching it, and it's like, yeah, but then also probably through our own fault or like keenness to scale and like focus on other things is we did probably skip through the like the doing it phase a little bit. So for us, it's probably like, what would you recommend for someone who's kind of might have skipped the teaching it phase? And like, we have good sales guys, they are talented. It's just a case of like, would you say just really dial in the teaching with them?
send me a voice note on Instagram. I'll get back to you. I've got a few questions and I want to keep rolling because there's a few
Yeah, keep going.
if I don't hit that you guys are going to be confused. So I do want to hit that. And Ken, am I good to keep rolling for like 15,
Yeah,
20 minutes?
you're good, bro. I mean, I imagine people will drop off, but you're good.
Yeah, that's fine.
So yeah, cheers, dude. Cheers.
Yep. Just shoot me a message and I'll help you out. Dorian, do you have a quick question or is it something that can wait towards the end or do you want to?
I'll wait till the end. It's all good.
Okay, cool. All right. So guys, I'm going to kind of go a little bit quicker here, but this is going to be very important for you guys to see. And it's exactly kind of what you were just asking, Daniel. So really, guys, bottom up sales team development. It's the best model you can run, especially if you're starting your first business. Okay. Now, how do we train? How do we build these assessments? Okay. Very, very easy. We're going to take the challenge approach again, right? So Daniel, if you're trying to figure out, you know, like where or what you missed, right? This is how we build our first training. And building our first training, like literally from when we actually take it from a spreadsheet to an actual system to like an actual LMS, et cetera, is very, very simple. And the way that we actually do this, and let me just pull this up. All right, cool. the way that we build these training and assignments, right, is we start with a sheet like this, which you guys are going to get, right? You're going to have a setup phase, you're going to have a training phase, and then you're going to have a production phase for anybody new that comes into your business. Okay. And the way that we do this is it's a 30-day challenge, right? We do group hiring, which I'm not going to bring in right now. But when you guys bring in somebody new, they need an A through Z. How do I complete my first 30 days? And you need to give them objectives, milestones, challenges, etc. Right? And you got to make it competitive once you get down the line. But basically, your first goal is to build a spreadsheet that has your setup, which is like sign this document, log into your email, join your Zoom account, join Slack. It's setup. It's very simple shit. You've got training, right? And you've got production. It is simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. And if you just get this lined out, all you have to do is train one person top down on Zoom with the recording on, and now you have your entire training curriculum for your setting team. Okay. So when you're thinking about building training, it's very, very simple. You're going to go through a setup. There's going to be one checkpoint, which is usually a form. We usually have like a form that triggers them like, hey, they've completed checkpoint 1, right? When they go through training, right? They submit basically, I'm ready for leads or whatever the case may be, like that form, because the first part of the training is like script and product and knowledge and watch these recordings and blah, blah, blah. The second part of training is like actually getting to work, right? And then they have production. So make your first 500 calls, make your first 1,000 calls, make your first 1,500 calls, set your first 5 discos, set your first 10, whatever, right? And we want all of this done in the first 30 days. Okay. It's easy. We're giving them foundation, right? You're set up in our system. You know where everything is, right? Now we're going to work on your capability, right? So actually training you, and then we're going to see if you want it, right? In order for a role or somebody to fill a role and it actually work, they have to obviously be capable, right? They have to want it, right? And they need to actually have some kind of an understanding of what you're actually trying to get them to do, right? So there's a want, there's a need, and there's a know-how that has to be in here. So very, very simple. This is how you're going to build it. Again, right? I'm not going to go too far in depth, but the way that this works is as you guys build this, you literally take somebody top down, link to the training. It's all freaking Zoom videos. Like you can make it very, very simple. This is how you properly ramp people. Eventually, you're going to have your setter one. You're going to have your closer one, right? You're going to turn it into leaderboards. So you're going to be able to see who's the best person that's ever come through your challenges, right? And you're going to start putting places for whatever this is, right? So first place, $1,000 plus 50% commission on their first sale. Second place, $500, 30% commission on their first sale. And you're going to turn it into a challenge, right? Because most of the time, and this is another just nugget that I'm not going to go too far into, is once you get to a certain point, you never want to bring on individual hires for sales reps. You always want to hire in groups. The reason being is it's going to take you the same amount of time and effort to train one person as it would for you to basically train 3 to 4. Okay. And new hires need competition. They need like some camaraderie, like them going through it as a group in a, for example, competition styled 30-day challenge where they get a leaderboard and something along those lines to win first place, second place, some recognition, right? Some more money, right? They're going to work a lot harder and they're going to ramp each other a lot faster rather than just sitting doing one-on-one. Okay. So you guys are going to get this. Again, we're going to send it out. Now, meeting cadence. This is super important. I'm going to speed through it because I have an entire doc that's going to help you guys. But this is very, very important. And Ken, this is probably going to be something cool for you guys as well that you guys can try. Let me get into, all right, here it is. Cool. So meeting cadences. Again, I'm going to go super quickly on this, but it's going to give you guys a ton of ideas. All right. So you guys saw the checks, all of that stuff. What you guys didn't see is how we do our Monday morning, our Friday morning, all of these different meetings virtually. And one of the biggest telltale signs of when we are working with a team or we're looking at something is the signs of basically how well they're running their meetings. Super sub, but if we join and it's boring as shit and like people are like actually detracting with 30 minutes a day every single day instead of getting a plus, right? Their team's coming in and actually getting something from it. It's one of the biggest telltale signs if a company's going to go like this or if they're going to start going down is truly that morning meeting, that kickoff. Okay. So the meeting agenda that we run with our sales team, And this is A, for the business owner or whoever's running the meetings to not have to think about what they're going to do, but also to keep the sales team on their toes and always be developing them every morning. Okay. Mondays, weekly kickoff. Tuesdays, role play. Wednesday, strategy. Thursday, role play. Friday, weekly wrap up. Now I'm going to explain exactly what those are. Okay. Weekly kickoff. Okay. All this is, guys, is you're coming into the morning meeting. You're going to basically lead and set the tone for the week. You're going to go over the goals. So the specific numbers. Hey, guys, we need 5 new sales and we need 20 sets. So setters, we need 20 sets. Closers, we need 5 deals. Okay. That's our weekly goal this week. Great. You're going to review, give any updates. A lot of people like to update every morning. You're going to give your updates on Monday. That's it. Okay. Monday morning is for updates. You're going to hype them off, send them off. That means playing music. That means freaking doing something. Like Monday is get in, set the goal, set the objective, and let them go. Okay. Now, weekly wrap up, end of the week. Now, there's a reason I'm skipping Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but end of week. Okay. During this meeting, it's important that you guys obviously get on the same page. Did we meet our goal? But you're going to go over either celebration, reflection, and accountability over the week. So if we met our goal, right? Did we meet our goal? So did we do 5 deals and did we make 20 sets? Great. We did. Okay. You're going to go over the top performer for each one and you're going to spin the bonus prize wheel. Okay. Now what this is quite literally is if they meet goal, we put a bunch of different things, bonuses on a wheel, and whoever the top performer is, they get to spin it. Okay. This could be a commission increase for all of Friday, Saturday, and Sunday until they get to the next week. So they get a 5% commission increase for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It could be anybody that closes a deal gets, an extra $500. They've got 48 hours. It could be, I don't know. You guys can do whatever you guys want with this, whatever hypes up the team. But basically the wheel spin should be like a celebration at the end of every week. We hit our goal, guys. Like, now spin the freaking wheel. Let's see what we get. We used to do freaking Coronas, like beer time in the office. We used to do some like really crazy shit. Yeah, I'm not going to go over what it was, but there was a lot of really, really interesting things going on. And like the actual, like, I just want to show you guys kind of the energy of what this actually looks like. Here, let me see if I can find it. I know it's in here somewhere. Come on, baby. I know it's in here. Okay, maybe not. I don't know if we're gonna be able to send it. I'll put it in the channel, but the energy that you guys get off of stuff like this is insane. And it's gonna actually hype people up instead of getting them on Friday where everybody just wants to check out. Okay. Now, end of week wrap up if they don't hit goal. Okay. So weekly wrap up, they didn't hit goal. Okay. You're going to have your actual team leads once you get to that point, go over and review the metrics as to why they didn't hit it. So they're actually going to give you reasons why they didn't hit it, what they think they can do next week, etc. And if you have a larger team, right, having this sales leads, like if you guys have a team like this, when it gets to this point, if we didn't hit goal and Ken is explaining that he did 90% of the revenue that week, so he did 4 of the 5 sales that we needed. The other team didn't even do 1. And he did 15 of the 20 sets that we needed, right? The other team did like 3 or 4, right? He's going to feel great. Like, guys, we did our thing. This person's going to feel terrible. They're not going to want to present those numbers. So you're doing a lot of your accountability without actually needing to do a lot of your accountability. Okay. So you want to set up these ways of doing these things, right? Now, moving along here into the meetings, this is kind of my favorite part of this whole thing, is strategy training. This you guys don't need to do until you have a much bigger team, but this gives your team, whoever the top setter is or whoever the top closer is, they do a takeover on Wednesday mornings and they train on anything they want. So they actually train the team. So you're developing leaders because they're the top setter, they're the top closer, whatever it is. They get to address the team and they have to come prepared. And you're going to be able to gauge how much they actually want to be upwards in the chart based on how much they prepare for this, right? So sometimes we'd have, a setter who does crazy things and they come into the Wednesday morning and they have nothing. They're just like, oh, yeah, this is how I do this and blah, blah. They don't give a shit. They just want to keep setting, which is cool. But you're going to identify this. Sometimes you have a setter that crushes it. They come in and they bring the heat. Like they're excited as shit to train and teach people. You want to give these opportunities. Okay. Now, role plays. Role play can be either the worst thing you do or the best thing you do. And I've found this to make it the best thing that I do. And this is how I get training going. If you guys don't have a big team, don't worry about the strategy. Just keep it as a role play. All right. So every single time we meet, what we're doing is we have a bunch of different role plays, right? So speedball. This would be, you pick like product knowledge, company history, objection handling, whatever the case may be. You pick a topic, and this would be like me sending it over to Ken and saying, yeah, man, how long have you guys been around as a business? If he can't answer, he's out. If he does answer, he sends it to the next person and they battle. Okay. The whole team's just zipping it around, going back and forth until the last person's left, right? Usually $100 prize, increased commission, whatever, right? War is 1 versus 2. So it'd be like me going against Ken and Dorian here, right? A lot of these businesses, they sell to multiple people, multiple decision makers. You've got the CEO and the COO, or you've got the wife and the husband, right? So it's basically handling 2 objections at once from 2 people. So the closer is handling 2 people at once, right? Executive takeover is when the CEO or the sales rep is basically the closer, and the sales team gets to be the prospect or whatever, and they're seeing how you handle all this stuff. Call review is one of my favorites. Every single salesperson on the sales team has to keep A, their best recording, and B, their worst recording in their pocket at all times. Because if we hit call review, we're going to spin the wheel again, and it's going to land on somebody on the sales team, and we review their first 15 minutes or their last 15 minutes of their call. And the whole team reviews it. Okay. And then you've got heads up, which is just 1v1. You break everybody out into Zooms, they one-on-one. Right. Now, what we do is we use pickerwheel.com, which you guys can save, and we put all these role plays on the wheel. So when we get in Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday morning, all we're doing is everybody's there. Great, guys. We're spinning the wheel. Okay, cool. It is speedball. Boom, we're in it. No one fucking knows what we're going to be doing that morning, but it keeps everybody on their toes, and it keeps people excited because they have no idea what they need to come in prepared for. And if every single day you're doing the same role play, people are going to be coming in lethargic. They're going to be bored. They're going to be chilling. If they come in and they don't even know if they're going to have their call reviewed, or if they're going to be on the 1v1 or the 1v2, or if they're going to be in the executive takeover, or whatever the case may be, they got to stay on their shit. And it excites people, right? Especially when you start putting some ideas and some bonuses and stuff along those lines around this, right? And again, you're doing the same thing at the end of the week. You're spinning the freaking wheel. You're spinning the wheel, right? So your meeting cadence should be designed so that A, you can do it without thinking about it and it's still exciting. B, it needs a structure that when you move up and out, somebody else can do and run efficiently and effectively. C, you never, ever, ever want to run meetings just because you feel like you need to be running meetings. You always want to be getting a plus out of each meeting, right? Monday, we're setting the tone. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're developing and training. Friday, we're doing recap, a review, shout outs, recognition, etc. Okay. And where you guys would do the recognition of these milestones being met, signing the big checks, whatever the hell you guys want to do, is going to be in that Friday meeting, right? Or the Monday meeting. Okay. So that's how this works. Now moving along here, and I'm going to try and really speed this up. Sorry, guys. So biggest thing when you're going through this, right? Phase 2, what does it look like? You're going from optimizing to systemizing to replicating, right? You're getting out of this sales lead into a sales director role. You've got 2 pods. Again, you're going through that same feedback loop. There's going to be about 3 loops. I'm not going to go too far into it, but you're going from doing it to optimizing how you do it, from teaching it to systemizing how you're teaching it, aka what I was just showing you guys. Instead of having it in a spreadsheet, you're going to build it into an LMS, and you're going to make that training be delivered automatically through something like a system, HubSpot or whatever, right? So when they onboard, all of those trainings and deliverables are going to be sent to them automatically. You're not going to have to do all this stuff manually again. You're going to go from managing it to replicating managers. So instead of you teaching the bottom level, you're going to be teaching the top level. So these things change as you go through this. Going past that, I'm not going to go into this. I'm not going to go into this. Book suggestions. 10x is easier than 2x. This is one of the biggest things that you guys need to see. I would love to touch on this, but I don't think I'm going to have time. Sales acceleration formula, probably the next best piece that you guys should look at. Going past that, again, I'm not going to go into this. Yeah, this is one thing I'm going to touch on. So systems, guys, and I don't want to go too far into this, but early on, this is going to be kind of what your process looks like. Your marketing team is going to be delivering leads to your sales team like this. They're basically going to just be chucking a freaking bucket of water towards them. right? Your sales team's just gonna be freaking taking it in the face, leads all over the place, trying to find shit. Like, where do I find my leads? Who do I call today? All this stuff. And then let's say they do make a sale. They're gonna be dumping this over to fulfillment like this, right? Like, you're gonna just gonna be pouring it over and saying like, yeah, here, catch guys, good luck. Like, I sold them. And they're gonna be like, dude, this is a realtor. Like, we work with freaking, I don't know, anything but realtors, right? The sales team's gonna be like, I don't care. I sold them, dude. Like, good luck, right? So one of the things that we would go into is kind of the system architecture and how this works. And this is kind of what I want to end with. I'm going to send out some assets. There's an AI prompt. I'm not going to go into it now, but it'll write all of your drop-off coverage, emails, SMS templates for you. You're going to fill out a few things. I'm going to give an example real quick. This is going to write all of your pre-call, no-show, or pre-call, no-show, and follow-up cadences. It's a prompt for ChatGPT. You put prompt A in, and then prompt B in, and then prompt C in, and it's going to basically spit out all of your sequences for you, which will be really cool for helping you guys plug up kind of your systems. And again, like, I would go really deep into this, but I'm not going to. The second one that this will write all of your Facebook hooks for you. So when we're writing ads, again, this is way out of left field, but it'll help you guys a ton. It's all of the best, basically, converting ads across a bunch of different platforms. You guys are going to fill in this, and you're going to prompt ChatGPT with it, and it's going to write all of your ad hooks for you. So literally, this is what it spit out for us. Like, we guarantee you transform your CRM chaos into sales machine in 30 days. Skeptical, you should be, blah, 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 but it changes all of your hooks, right? And also, it's going to write your VSL for you, a whole bunch of other shit. Again, like, maybe I'll send Ken like a demonstration on some of this stuff so you guys can see it. But basically, this will write all of your ad hooks, all of your ad bodies, your VSL for you, basically scripting all the way through. And it is good. Like, it's extremely good. Extremely, extremely good. Okay. Last piece. I don't think this QR code works, but I do want to go over something as the last piece for you guys. As you guys are growing and you're going into this stuff, one of the biggest mistakes that I made really growing is I tried to focus on way too much. Way too much early on. Okay. One thing, when you guys start to figure this out, if you guys can figure out a lead source, you guys start to build a sales team, right? You have a good fulfillment process, like, you feel kind of good. One thing that you guys can really look at that I think will help you guys get, I don't know, maybe excited, maybe a little scared, I don't know which one, but it should help you guys, is as you guys are growing and you guys start to understand these numbers I talked about in the beginning, you got to know your numbers. You got to set your baselines, right? When you're looking at this stuff, let's say you're getting, I don't know, let's say 2,000 leads. I'm just going to make this super round for you guys, right? 2,000 leads in, let's say your lead to booking percentage. So how many leads you get are getting booked is 8%. That means you have 160 bookings. Let's say your show rate is pretty bad. It's 45%, right? That means you're losing about 80 bookings, 88 bookings a week. Let's say you're rebooking. Maybe you're not tracking it, so you're not rebooking off your no-shows, right? So you're not getting a ton of rebookings. So you're taking about 72. Your close rate's 29%. You're selling something for $9,600. Okay, cool. So you're doing about 200 grand in gross rev, right? Oh, this looks a little bit messed up. Not sure where we're broken. Anyways, you're doing this. When you're looking at what I need to focus on, guys, look what happens when you just go from an 8% to a 10%. And let's say these numbers stay the same. You can add 600,000 a year by changing no numbers, except for going from a 2% increase off your lead to booking from 8 to 10%. It's a $500,000 increase a year. So when you guys are trying to build your business, understand you're going to be getting a lot of different information in. What you guys need to realize is, like, you need to really hyper focus on what's necessary as you guys are growing. And if you guys can start to understand these evolution phases, evolution phase 1, 2, 3, you guys are going to start to understand what's important, so that when you guys get these assets and these foundational pieces in, that's when you guys can go to something like this and take a look and say, cool, if we go from 8% to 10% in the next 2 months, and we can get our show rate up, let's say 5%, and let's say we start rebooking at 10%. Okay, great. That's a $1.2 million increase on our year. And you can start playing with these things and start understanding these things. And this is what you guys need to get to. Okay. But you don't get here unless you set a solid foundation, you leave a cookie trail, you understand you're going to be constantly in these feedback loops where it's going to get really good and then really bad, really good and then really bad. And it's your job to be 100% accountable across this entire phase. Phase one is important. Phase one is very important. And the best thing that I have to say is like, people don't do these small things. They don't set up promotion ladders. They don't take time to think about it. They don't set up their KPIs. They don't set up their expectations. They don't set up their compensation. They don't think about these things until it's too late. So don't do that. Do the opposite. Cool. And I'm going to end right there. There's a lot that I would love to go into, but I don't have time and I don't want to keep you guys, much longer. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to share with you guys today. I skipped around a little bit, so if there's any confusion, I apologize, but I hope that helps you guys, and you're going to get a ton of stuff. So
Absolute fire, bro. Can I ask you a quick question, and maybe Dorian can ask you one?
yeah, absolutely.
So when it comes to those sales KPIs, which ones would you say matter the most? And I have another question from someone else, but how do you go about tracking it personally?
How do I go about tracking it?
So what first part of the question is what sales KPIs would you say matter the most in the front end? Like the more important levers that you've seen within, all these other organizations you've been a part of. What are
Yeah.
the main ones you would focus on, like the levers that you would pull?
Yep.
And then
So
kind of side question is what are you doing to track it?
yeah. So first thing I want to point out is in the beginning, phase one, it's all about activity, right? So people constantly try and solve for like filtering down. We got to qualify more. Our closers are upset. Stop booking me with crappy people. Fuck that. Activity, 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 activity. How many calls can we get booked, guys? Load me up. I'm closing right now. Load me up. Load me up. Let me teach you. Let me teach you. It's all about activity. So in the beginning, right, your KPIs are going to be really heavy activity. Like, guys, I want to do as much activity as we possibly can. Now, obviously, you want to align their compensation, their kicker, to whatever you want them to be doing and achieving each day, right? So if we go back to that compensation plan, right, it was calls, sets, revenue, right? And if we went up to expectations, it was calls, sets, show, revenue, right? So our kicker, right, that $20 extra thing every time they do something is set around setting appointments that show up. Every time you set an appointment that shows up, $20 extra, $50 extra, $100 extra, whatever you guys want to spend, right, on that. But you want to align people to whatever you're trying to get them to do. And those milestones help them set targets. If they're aligned to what they need to be doing, right? So like their compensation makes sense, but then there's no targets. Like, what are they getting hyped up to go towards, right? So you need to set those targets. So as you grow, right, from phase one to phase two, it's going to be more about like really becoming more effective, right? Maybe less activity, but more production, right? So that way you're going to start to go like, okay, cool. So how many calls and emails and texts is this person taking or making to actually get a set? Okay, this person, it takes 80 activities to actually get one set. This person, it takes 60. Like, what's this person doing differently? Right? You can start to like look at things and try and set proper expectations there. And what you guys will notice too is like the bigger your organization is, the more revenue you're doing, the less you need to make drastic changes. If I pulled that calculator back up and we were talking about 10,000 leads and somebody who's selling, 500 units at 10K a month, you guys your minds would be exploded by what a 0.2% increase on lead to booking does. A 0.2 increase on show rate does. A 0.2 increase on any of these metrics does for those companies and those organizations, right? And as you guys start getting bigger and bigger, and I'm not going to pull this up too far, but I do want to show you guys a little bit of what this looks like, is when you guys get bigger and bigger and bigger, right, you guys are going to have a fuller and more complete understanding of your entire process with your numbers, right? So you're going to know your entire front end side from marketing to sales. You're going to know your marketing numbers. You're going to know your fulfillment, so your back end revenue, right? what your upsell percentage is, how many testimonials you're getting, what your referrals you're getting, all these different things all the way through, right? So for front end revenue, back end revenue, profitability, all of this stuff, and you're going to be able to literally look at this and tweak these numbers every so often. And that means 1 month, January, you're focused on this number. Month 2, you're focused on this number. Month 3, instead of doing all of these different things. So when it comes to measuring and stuff, we use HubSpot. I mean, HubSpot is where we track everything in terms of how we track everything. Literally, I'll show you guys kind of like what maybe one of these might look like. But we're setting all of our goals and dashboards and reporting. Let me go to, cool. So like we're using stuff like this. Our PIF versus payment plan, cash collected versus goal versus last month, our SKUs we're selling, our next up to close, closing rates, show rates, cash collected, commissions. Basically, all of this stuff is happening inside of HubSpot. If you guys don't have HubSpot, manual tracking, Google Sheets, like that'll do you guys fine for now. But yeah, we're tracking as automated as we can so that accountability can be easy. And I think the earlier that you kind of set that up, the better, obviously, because it's going to take something off your plate and you're not going to have to make as much guesses. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. So start with activity, then you're going to want to filter down for like more of effectiveness. And then once you get back, like it's just driving performance at that point, right? So putting in more competitions, more expectations, stuff along those lines.
Love that.
Cool. And what was the second piece of that, Ken?
No, you kind of answered it. It was just like tracking EODs. We had someone on the team ask about it. So
Cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
you kind of pulled it up with HubSpot.
Yeah. Dorian?
I just want to know more or less, like when you're building a team from, I guess, the ground up, how are you finding the talent? Like, how are you sorting through them, like filtering and whatnot?
Yeah, so I'm gonna, okay, let me sprint this real quick. So when we are building teams, okay, let me go to oh shit.
Bro, this is fire, by the way. I appreciate you.
Okay. Yeah, dude. All right, so when we're building teams, right, we do group recruiting. The reason we do group recruiting is because we want to do all of the interviews at once. We don't want to do one-on-ones. So when we have our expectation sheet, right? So like when we have, for example, this built out, right? It's one of the things that we're going to pull up on that group recruiting side. So we'll get a bunch of people. Usually, transparently, I've built enough teams to where like I am very fortunate that I have a lot of people that I can call on for placement and stuff.
Yeah.
What I did in the beginning, honestly, is I had my sales team, part of their promotion was bringing in referrals for people that might be interested, right? Because if a setter goes to closer, we have to bring in a new setter.
Yeah.
We can't do it unless like they can't get promoted unless we have somebody to fill their spot, right? Because you don't want to go from doing 100 sets a month to 50 because your best guy went to closing and now he has nobody to close.
Yeah.
But the format of how we do this is they'll submit applications. Those applications get qualified or disqualified through our system, right? And then all of the automated correspondence basically, hey, come to this group interview. On the group interview, we explain to them everything that's going to happen, right? What we're looking for. We go over the growth plan. Like, guys, we're here. We're going to here in the next 3 to 6 months, right? Here's our expectations. Here's the compensation. If this isn't for you, please jump off. If anybody jumps off, cool, right? Most people are going to stay. And basically we give them a script. We say, hey, handle this objection. Why is this a great role for you? Why should we look at you over all the other candidates? And you're going to film that and send it to me. I need it in 24 hours. Here's the form. Don't ask again. It's right here. Click this open, send it in. And they send in basically video apps. Those get disqualified or qualified. We add them to the second group interview, and then we make all of our hires from there. Right. And then what I was talking about inside of the actual, like right here, this is a great representation of this, right? We're going from a Google Sheet, wherever this thing is, right? Assignments, closers, to a system that gets triggered anytime somebody gets hired as a setter, hired as a closer. It's now emailing them all of their next steps, delivering them all the training materials. It's taking them through onboarding for the next 30 days. So that's going from like doing it, process V1 to systemizing it, you know, evolution phase 2. So you can get to evolution phase 3. But I'd say in the beginning, man, like for where you should be looking, you got to build some hype around the team.
Yeah.
Right? The big checks, the freaking bats, like you got to build some hype, right? That team that I was showing you, 90% of our talent was from Florida. Do you want to know where the headquarters was? Middle of fucking nowhere, Indiana. But we had people moving from Miami and California. We had people coming from all over to come in there because they wanted to be there. I never had to recruit, right? So you want to start with obviously places that you can get good talent from. One of the best places that I've found or I've suggested for people to find their first initial hires is their actual client base or the people that they've talked to that really wanted to buy what they had, but didn't have the money.
Okay.
Right. So if
Yeah.
you have a bunch of DQs or people that can't afford it, start there. Talk to them. Hey, I will teach you about this. I will train you and you're going to start making money, sales, but like you got to be committed here. And I'm willing to do that trade.
Yeah.
Right. And those people, they're going to be hell yeses, not
Sure.
like, I don't know, you know.
Yeah. For your
Start
for your referral system, now obviously anyone can refer someone. How do you get like an incentive to get like bring on good people? Because like for my past team that I was sales team that I was on, it'll say you referred someone. If they stayed for 3 months, you get a bonus. Like, do you have any structures like that? Or if they sell so many deals, make so much?
I don't
No?
need to because the way that the structure is set up is if you want to go from setter to closer, you need to bring somebody in, right? Or you need to bring a referral in. And their incentive is that person's going to be setting for them. So the way I frame it is like, look, we need to find you your protege,
Okay.
right? Like we need to find you your protege. Who's that going to be, right? Who would you
Yeah.
be fired up every day to work with? Like we need to find that person. How can I help
Okay.
you find that person?
Yeah, so they just work as a team.
100%.
Okay.
Like that's going to be the person that's feeding them. They're going to teach them. They're going to bring them in, make them more money, right? And dude, there's nothing more rewarding than going from a setter to a closer and then bringing in your buddy. And then like 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, they're buying their favorite car. You know what I mean? Like that's how
Yeah.
you build stickiness in a culture. It's like, I brought you in here. I'm responsible for you. You're doing really well. You're bringing people in now. Like that's how you build that culture. And that's how you really just like, you don't need to recruit.
Yeah.
Like that's just part of the job, right? So
Sweet.
I hope that helps.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Any last questions, guys?
And Jolie, you got one?
Hey, Aaron, thank you so much for tonight. It was awesome. I do have a question regarding how do you motivate the sales team so that they improve their performance? Like, for instance, for context, you have a team of 4 setters, and even though they are doing the input, they are hitting the target, they are not delivering result in terms of consistently setting calls. And so I've suggested that we can increase the target, but we're not happy about it. So I'm just wondering, how do you balance them, turning them into high performer without, while keeping them happy at the same time and keeping them excited to work, So that's my challenge.
Yeah, I mean, motivation is like, it depends the culture you have. I've always leaned on competition, always, right? Like if I feel like the team's kind of slowing down, I'll throw in a competition. Hey guys, like we're doing a rebook no-show competition. These are all of our no-shows this last quarter. There's 400 of them, right? Everybody gets double commission on these deals. Why? Because they're all dead anyways, right? So, hey guys, you have 30 days to rebook all of these no-shows. If you rebook them between this date and this date, not only are you going to get double commission on them, but also whoever's first place gets blank, 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 right? These people will go insane. They will go crazy for that, right? Like you can start putting in competitions and lulls, right? Like one thing that we always do is like, we always make sure we have a badass competition for December. Why? Because sales teams, right? They're gonna be traveling, they're gonna be skiing, they're gonna be with their friends, they're gonna be doing this, Christmas, New Year's. We want to do a badass competition that keeps people locked in all Christmas. So you can start to come up with these ideas and these competitions and these challenges to keep people locked in. And at the point of you getting to 2 pods or 3 pods or 4 pods, the competition is always going on. So the sales lead is going to be the main driver of keeping people up, right? And the sales lead is responsible for the overall KPI like hit. So how much of the pod is hitting KPI? 60%, 50%, 70%, right? So they're the person that actually drives the competition. Right now, it's you, right?
Mm, yeah.
So, again, I also think if you gave them a path upwards, hey, this is how you go from setting to closing to, they're going to be way more motivated, right? When people don't know how to get to where they want to go, you want everybody working for what they want, not what they have, right? So you want everybody constantly working for what they want, the role that they want. You don't want them just working because they have a job and they have a role right now. You want
Yeah.
them constantly working for the job that they want or the role that they want or the position that they want. And if you don't have that, people are going to get stagnant.
Mm,
They're going to get stagnant. And
okay.
there's nothing you're going to be able to do to break them out of it because they want to progress. They want to go up. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. It does. Just wondering one last thing regarding what you just said. And so since these are so they are setting that it's a team, it's a team of setter basically. So what you say is not necessarily like increasing the target, but incentivizing them through prices. You know, it's like, okay, if you set this number of calls, then you get maybe this reward. That's the way we should kind of get them back on track and get them back motivated to perform basically.
And yeah, it's up to your culture, right? It could be competition. It could be like, guys, if we hit this goal, like we're going to go out to Costa Rica or freaking Miami or whatever for a little bit. Like everything that you guys have to do is like, whenever you're thinking about how do I hit performance targets, like you got to run, like, think of innovative campaigns. Like it's easy to think about that marketing. You also
Yeah.
got to create innovative campaigns for your team, internal, right? Like you got to come up with ideas, cool ways to motivate. Like it's a game. You're playing, like, it's a game both ways, right? Marketing, we got to figure out how to attract people and make it cool, exciting, etc.
Yeah.
Internal, how do we make people hit goals? Same thing. Campaigns, right? So this
Makes
shit
sense.
should be fun. Like it's gonna be hard, but it should be fun for you guys.
Mm.
Like do the shit that you would want to do, right? Like I want to give away freaking cars someday. I want to freaking have a Ferrari on the line for my team, you know, and a few, you know what I mean? Like I want to do stuff like that. So like if you start small, right,
Yeah.
you do these things, like it's gonna build like crazy, right? Like how cool would it be if you took out your top closers at the end of the year and freaking picked them up in a limo and took them out to the Rolex store? Like you gotta have some vision like that because it'll start to build up. Like it's all there. You can start really small. But those
Mhm.
little things come in phase one. Like you got to start doing this shit. You can't just do it at the end. It doesn't work that way, right? Like you're not going to build leaders that truly are there for you and for the vision if like you start this stuff too late. You got to do it early.
Got you.
Um,
Thank you. Yeah, it makes
yeah.
sense. Thank you.
Yep. Absolutely. Cool. All right. Sweet. Well, that was a fun 2 hours.
Great. It was great.
Right, Ken?
It was great.
Oh yeah. Serge.
Love it. Love it. Aaron, we should definitely chat sometime next week if you have a second. I'd love to talk about some of the stuff that we're working on and see how we can potentially work together.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Yeah, and yeah, I'll end with this. My DMs are open, guys. If anybody has questions, feel free to hit me up. And yeah, I don't sell any of the sales team stuff anymore. So you guys need it, I got you. I'm giving it away. It's not something I sell. So don't feel like you can't ask me something and I'm gonna pitch you on something. I'm not. We don't do that anymore at all. So whatever I've got is a treasure chest for you guys.
What are you doing right now? So how have you pivoted? Maybe talk more a little, because a lot of maybe you don't know a little bit about what we do, but just to give you context, kind of like what we're doing with a lot of the clients that we have and partners is, so, you know, I went through the agency thing where I started an appointment setting agency in 2021. And we're doing appointment setting through DMs and things like that. But then, you know, kind of like hit a peak where it's like, okay, it's too much work, too little money, too much, you know, too many variables to scale. And we started this model of building and releasing the actual infrastructures, right? So instead of me appointment setting for you, I'd come in, help you build your team. And then I would also build the protocol, the outbound and all that good stuff. And then we would just do that for like, you know, 30, 40 businesses every month, right? I was able to scale that. And then now every person that we're kind of like partnering up today is they're coming in with a specific edge, and we're turning that into a protocol and essentially building and releasing the thing you do instead of selling your time and doing it, you know, like on a retainer and everything. So that's kind of like what everybody here is trying to do.
I love
Um,
it.
and yeah, that's kind of like what we were doing, you know, so building, releasing AI stuff with setters, sales people, marketing stuff. So for you, how have you transitioned out of, so you started with, you know, you ended up building sales teams, but then now what's your transition, your
Yeah,
journey?
so I was doing the sales team takeover thing for a while. And those teams were very successful. And after a while, they'd always come back to me and basically be like, hey, we're falling apart, dude. Like we grew really fast. We're falling apart. So out of necessity, I had to get really good at building systems, CRMs, how marketing comes into sales, how sales goes into fulfillment, how we get fulfillment back to sales, how do we track all this, how do we report it, how do we build it so it's scalable. And transparently, dude, like now our entire team and all we do is we go into pretty decent sized organizations and we fix their systems. So we go in and we redesign, audit, implement, and basically scale all of the systems for them. At the beginning, we were building on everything like Salesforce, Close, GHL, Infusionsoft, you name it, we're building everything. Now we only build HubSpot. That's it. We won't touch anything else. We're 100% built off HubSpot. And where we are different is like we're building for growth and revenue, kind of that calculator I showed you, right?
Yeah.
Like we're trying to find areas of big missed opportunity. We're trying to plug drop-off points, plug the leaks, et cetera. And we have our own way of doing it. It's called the MOS, the Momentum Operating System. And you know how we do this, and just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a peek in here. Actually, I think this is the wrong tab. Here we go. Cool. So, you know, we have a framework, right? And how we actually build this out. And basically, like how this works is we have a few different entry points, right? There's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, right? And these leads are coming in all over the place, right? In different locations, et cetera. The way that we set this up, if we have different ways of increasing different percentages. And one of the biggest ones is going in, and this will just be kind of a, I don't know, free game for anybody that wants to run this because it helps a ton. If I can find, cool, there's a good one. Cool. So for example, right, if you look at this, you guys have funnels or you have DMs or whatever the case may be. You have people that opt in, then you have people that opt in and apply or do something a little bit further. And then you have people that opt in and book, right? And you have all these different drop-off points, right? So we have different ways of covering these drop-off points, making it a lot more efficient. For example, like P1, P2, P3 power dialing lists, right? So like a P1 list, for example, is all of the leads 0 to 3 days that are active, have just come through the funnel, and they're assigned to you. And what we do is as they load up into the power dialer, right, all of these leads are filtered by activity. So for example, this person, you know, 20 minutes ago clicked open an email, right? So they're power dialing their entire lists from creation date earliest and activity earliest in buckets now, instead of just getting a big, massive, wide bucket of leads and having to call through and have no idea what's going on, right? They're getting the most active leads, the highest priority leads, first to the top of their power dialer every single time, and all they have to do is dial. So now your setter training process is super simple, and you're able to scale that because it's much easier to develop people. It's much easier to get them on. All of the automated correspondence that happens from the setters if they don't answer before they call, all of that stuff is happening, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that can go into obviously the deal pipeline, and then the deal pipeline leads into the onboarding for the client journey. The client journey, right? We've got month 1, month 2, month 3. We do a bunch of different automation to collect testimonials, to collect the referrals, and to do the renewal and upsell off of it. We're tracking the client success team as a secondary sales team and an experience. So like, for example, if we've got 3 CS people, right, coaches, we're tracking their book of business, success score, the referrals collected, their experience, like all of this stuff. So we're going in off of everything that we had to build for these teams. And we built a framework around that. And now that's what we're bringing to like clients like Valuetainment, right? Like they were on HubSpot and they needed these things, right? And they needed somebody with a framework that knew how to do this, that wasn't an IT guy.
Yeah.
Right. So, dude, we're just nerds with systems. Like that's all we do now. That is
Why
it.
HubSpot? Why
We're just
HubSpot?
constantly working with that stuff. Yeah.
Why just HubSpot? Like, is this possible and Go High Level?
Dude, I can't stand Go High Level. I'm sure you could do some of it. Here's the thing with Go High Level. in my eyes, right? This is my opinion. I've built a ton on it. Go high level is great to get up off the ground. Let's call it like 0 to like sub 80, 75 grand a month. As soon as you have a lot of people coming in and you need real reporting, you need a real like CS like component to your business, you have a true operations need. GHL is just it's an insufficient platform where you're going to have to bolt on a lot of extra stuff, right? Whereas HubSpot has full like small business all the way up to enterprise across sales, marketing, fulfillment, operations, and CMS in one login, right?
Interesting.
So instead of me needing to build in GHL to a certain point and then getting another platform and making those two communicate, and then another platform making those two communicate, and then also trying to get reporting out of GHL, because we all know GHL reporting is absolutely horrendous, right? So now I got to get another platform and get more reporting. And now I'm trying to track reporting off of 4 or 5 or 6 different platforms. I've got sales team, CS team, marketing team, all working out of different components, right? And it's really hard to scale and track and manage. Whereas with HubSpot, even if you've got 200, 300 employees, right? It's one login, all the permissions, it's set up for enterprise. So if you're growing rapidly, everything you're going to need at enterprise level is there. I don't have to bolt on a bunch of extra stuff. And it's just a much more developed platform. So all of the capabilities that I might want or need are there, right? So even if you're small, instead of growing quickly and then having to migrate, so having to shut down a bunch of stuff and migrate to a platform like Salesforce or HubSpot, right? Usually it's smarter if you're going to scale and you're going to grow to go with a platform that has a longer run rate, right? And HubSpot has a 10 times longer run rate than obviously GHL. And that's why our clients transparently, they're just not on GHL, right? And if they are, they're dying. Like they're screaming for help because it's just not, you just can't get there. If you have a very simple model, and again, like this is my opinion, right? If you have a very simple model, you don't have a ton of individuals, there's not a bunch of different departments, right? There's not a big delivery, there's not a long fulfillment. Like there is ways that you can use GHL all the way through scale and beyond.
Yeah.
But that's not my clients, right? So we just don't mess with it. We
Does
just
HubSpot
can't.
track, I'm sorry to cut you off. Does it track economics? So like, are you able to pull cost per book call from marketing lead to see touch
Bro,
points all the way through
I can
acquisition
pull
costs?
any number that you want. You can replace Hyros, you can replace Stape, you can replace everything. Like if I
Interesting.
spent 30 minutes just showing you the reporting, you'd cry because it's fucking awesome. And it's all in HubSpot. It's not anywhere else, right? You don't have to use a Plecto or a Databox or whatever, Google Sheets. Like it's not, you don't need to do that. Your marketing is in one system and in the same system as sales, and your sales and your marketing are in the same system as your fulfillment. It's one contact record that's holding all of your data points all the way from when they enter, all the way through when they close as a client, all the way through fulfillment. There's no jumping systems to try and get data points. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
it's way smoother. There's no tossing data back and forth, right? Now you can do that, right? You 100% can. But we want to focus on growth. We don't want to focus on like firefighting 24/7. So that's why we like HubSpot, right?
Interesting.
Yep.
Yeah, might have to jump on HubSpot.
Let me know, dude. Let me know.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, one thing too is if you guys are looking at HubSpot, like hit up Ken or Serge or any of these guys, because HubSpot, if you go through HubSpot, it's expensive as hell.
Yeah.
HubSpot, if you go through a partner, like take like 50, 60% off the ticket price.
Interesting. It's like Hyros.
Yeah, you got to know somebody to get good pricing. So
Interesting.
Okay.
yeah, just be careful with that. Don't start your sales cycle with a sales rep because you'll be basically you're going to get held to a much higher price than if you go through somebody that has connections there.
Yeah. Love
Yeah.
it. Love it. Awesome, guys. I hope everyone enjoyed today's training. This was pretty fucking amazing, actually. Now, for sure, a lot of the things that he covered are things that you need to get rich to start experiencing. Like some of these problems are not, you don't experience until you actually create them. So let's get to work.
Let's get rich.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Let's experience more problems. Let's deal with more problems, and and let's try to hope for bigger problems.
Yeah.
I'd love to ask one more question real quick.
Sure.
You've worked with Patrick Bet-David, Bradley, Kelly
Mhm.
Roach, you have a good portfolio.
Yeah.
What are some of the key takeaways that you've learned from working with all these guys who are doing hundreds of millions of dollars?
Dude, I have so many. This would be a completely separate call. This would be like I can't go into that really in depth. I think the biggest thing, man, is like these guys are 100% dead set locked on where they want to be. Right? Like they can tell you every single little detail. Like when I was talking about giving away the car, like if that's something in their vision where they want to get to, they can tell you what color the car is, how they're going to give the keys away, what they're going to do with their team. They can tell you where they're going to be, if it's going to be sunny or freaking shadowy outside. Like they're just so fucking elite at like creating this freaking perfect vision that they want to get to. But they are so flexible with everything on how to get there. Right? Like they are dead set here, but they are always learning, always transitioning, always focused on kind of doing these different pieces. And, just like you guys are doing here now, like they are always gathering more information, but they're always putting it in fast. Like if there's a way to do it faster, they're interested, right? Like they want to do it fast and they want to do it like with as little margin. But also one thing that Patrick said too to me which was really cool, was like, I had a really tough decision. He was like, look, it's not your job to get things right. It's your job to make decisions and get them right most of the time. Right? So like, it's okay to move and do shit and fuck up, but like, you better be on like a 60 to 80% right track, not like a 30 to 40% right track, right? So I mean, dude, it's like these guys are great. And like when you start to get into these circles, like it's like relationships and how you engage with people and how they do business is very different. Like it's not transactional at all. It's like opportunity for opportunity. Hey, I need help here. Cool, I can help you. And then down the line, they give you like an opportunity. For example, what Patrick did with us with SLS. Like now we're the headline sponsor at Mar-a-Lago in 2 months, right? So like we wouldn't have that opportunity if we didn't do a ton of stuff to help, just to help, right? Like that's a sponsorship that we shouldn't have. We shouldn't have it, right? But that's just kind of how this stuff works. So like you got to get to a position and a place of like, I don't need anything from this person. I believe in what they're doing and I'm going to help them grow and then they're going to help me grow. And that's just kind of how this stuff works. To get there, you really have to be, sorry, my phone's ringing. I don't know where it is.
I hope y'all took notes.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. I mean, they're like, they roll like professionals. They're very direct, transparent. Their communication is tight. Their teams truly believe in what they're doing. Like if you went to somebody on Patrick's team and you're like, yeah, man, like I don't really like Patrick that much, they'd defend Patrick and tell you, even if you had a gun to their head, like they would defend that person, right? Like they're all that tight of a team. So I think as you guys are building and growing, one of the things that I've realized this year and last year is like, if you want to be multiple times successful, right? You have to build a team that's going to be with you as you go through your next things. And if you're the CEO or you're the founder, that's just your role, right? You're just part of a different unit, right? Like you could be the face or the content guy or the CEO because you're the visionary, but that means you have to have an integrator, you have to have a finance person, you have to have these people, right? And you're not going to be successful, at least multiple times successful, unless you have these people, right? Like Patrick's team, most of his number twos, number threes, number fours, number fives, dude, they've been with him for like 15 to 20 years. They've been with him through like 7 or 8 or 9 different businesses. So like that puts a whole different perspective when you have people coming onto your team. Like even if it's a setter, a sales rep, like that person could be with you for the next 20 years if you develop them right, if you give them enough opportunity, if you really like try and do right by them. So like the relationships all build up and matter. So if you want to be multiple times successful, it's about the team that you build so you can bring them with you from project to project to project, not like I'm the CEO, so I just have to have really good ideas and fucking, like constantly bring in new people. Like these people that are really big and successful, it's because they've built a team that goes with them. They may be the idea guy, but they have the executors, and that's just their role. That's just their part, right?
Hmm.
It's not just them. So, dude, the way that their teams operate is just nuts. It's nuts. And it's motivating. Like if it makes you shape up for sure. So,
Love
yeah.
that.
Yeah, dude.
But-
But yeah, I'll end on this, guys. Have fun with building the sales team. If you're not having fun with it, you're doing it wrong. Okay. It's gonna be hot. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be stressful. You're gonna need new people. People are gonna screw you over. You're gonna get stabbed. You're gonna, there's gonna be a lot of stuff. But like, you gotta enjoy it. You gotta have fun with it. And again, those two books, the 10x versus 2x, and the sales acceleration formula. If you actually want to take this shit seriously, read both of those books. Read both of them because they're Bibles. They're straight up Bibles.
Yep.
Cool. Sweet.
Let's go. Thank you, Aaron, again. And
Appreciate you.
thanks, Casey, for bringing him on.
Let's go.
There it
I'll hit
is.
you
Let's
up when you
go. Jackson. My man.
All right,
I love
guys. Have an amazing weekend, an amazing Friday, and let's build something. All right, take care, guys.
Love y'all. Later. I'll hit you up, Aaron.
Thank you. Bye-bye.